Hey man, good to see you. Thanks for hanging out. This is kind of a different place for us to hang out today. I'm gonna try not to talk too loud because I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina. It's a Sunday, and this is a really old hotel. I think there's only about 25 or 30 rooms in the whole place. And my keyboard player's right over there. I think my bass player buddy is right over there. And if I talk too loud, they'll definitely hear me. And they're probably taking a nap. Anyway, it's Sunday morning. I had a few minutes on the pad, and I wanted to show you another quick warm-up exercise. I'm always looking for ways to play different kinds of rhythms with different kinds of stickings and just get comfortable weaving in and out of these different stickings, because you never know what you're gonna need. You don't want to think about how to stick something when you're moving around the drums. You just want to think about what it should sound like, right? So this is a great exercise. It's 16-note triplets, the way that I'm playing it, which is 6 notes for every single beat. And the first thing that I'm doing is I'm playing 3 paradiddle diddles. So paradiddle diddle, paradiddle diddle, paradiddle diddle. And then a double paradiddle, throws it over to the left side. Paradiddle diddle, paradiddle diddle, paradiddle diddle, double paradiddle. Right, so the double paradiddle is the last part. Double paradiddle for the 4th beat. You end up with this: 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the idea here is that you want to be able to just weave in and out of paradiddle diddles and double paradiddles on your right side or your left side, and really only concentrate on the rhythm you're playing. 1 ta ta anta 2 ta ta anta 3 ta ta anta 4 ta ta anta. I'd count it faster, but my mouth doesn't move that fast. I'm from the South. Anyway, but yeah, just at first get comfortable with each one. So that, like with that paradiddle diddle, you can just play that one. You're not thinking about it. Be careful not to compress, especially on the diddles. Don't compress those notes. Try and make those rhythms as even as you can. Same way with the double paradiddle. It's a little weird on this bed because it's a little uneven like this. And normally I would love to have this in a stand, kind of at the optimal height, but on the road nothing's optimal. So so you get comfortable with each one of those. And then at first I'm doing 3 of the single paradiddle diddle and a double paradiddle. Flip it to the left side, do that. Repeat the process. But eventually you want to try and get to the point where I could play paradiddle diddle into a double paradiddle, into a paradiddle diddle, into a double paradiddle, kind of like, I'll do it slow for you. Paradiddle. That's the idea, is that you just kind of can't talk and do it at the same time, but you get to where you can kind of go between each one, and you don't really have to think so much about the sticking. Give it a shot. You can, the great thing about it, the paradiddle diddle doesn't alternate, so you need something to get it over to the left side. The double paradiddle gives you the sticking you need to alternate. And when you alternate and move over to that left side, then you can work the left side. We've talked about that before. Make sure you work both sides of the house, right hand lead and left hand lead. Some of the best new ideas that I'm getting nowadays behind the drums are because I start with my left hand. So I hope that one works for you. Let's do another question. Don't have any saucy questions today other than probably, why are you doing this in your hotel room? It's the least invasive for everybody else. There's not like a balcony or a pool or a outdoor thing that this was the only place to film one of these while I'm on the road. So there's your saucy question. Why the heck are I letting you in my hotel room? This is about the only way you're getting in here. So anyway. All right. Here's a great question. This one actually comes from the parent of one of my students. And it's a great question. It says, what is the most underutilized potential revenue source for a working musician? For instance, recording, touring, bar gigs, worship gigs, corporate gigs, teaching, etc. So I don't know that there's a most underutilized or a best utilized, or here's the way I want you to think about this. Ultimately, what you're trading when you're talking about a service business is you're trading your time for someone else's dollars. So it really is, first, what do you enjoy doing? I mean, number one, don't do anything you don't enjoy doing. If you don't enjoy teaching, and there's plenty of musicians that don't enjoy teaching, please, as a favor to me and as a favor to every student that's out there in the world, don't teach if you don't enjoy teaching, if you don't love teaching, if you don't have a heart for teaching. Please don't teach. Don't do it just because it can become an income stream. You're going to hate the time doing it. You're going to hate putting up with students. You're going to hate, if you're teaching kids, anybody under 18, you're probably going to end up hating to deal with parents. All the different things that are involved. It's way too hard to get jaded and cynical teaching if you don't love it. Absolutely. I can tell you what I think one of the biggest wastes of time, not waste of time, least productive dollar per hour way to spend your time is with bar gigs. I just don't do a lot of them anymore. Not to say that I don't like doing them. I enjoy some of my bar gigs. I don't play a lot of bar gigs anymore, one, because they don't pay very well. And that's just from the jump. Like, the dollar amount itself is not very much. But the other problem is, if you think about, and again, you have to think outside of, well, it's a 3-hour bar gig that pays $150. Well, that 3 hours of play time, you may be showing up 2 hours ahead of time to set up and sound check. So now that's 5 hours. An hour to 2 hours on the back end, depending on how easy it is to pack up and get out of the club. I've played many bar gigs where when the band stops playing, the DJ starts and the dance floor fills up. If you've ever had to load all your drum gear out in the middle of a crowded dance floor, pushing people out of the way, excuse me, coming through. Yeah, that loadout can very easily take 2 hours when you've got a dance floor full of people that are just, drunk and having a good time dancing to whatever the newest dance club music is. So, now all of a sudden it's a 7-hour gig. Well, maybe it took me an hour to drive there and an hour on the other. Now we're into a 9-hour, maybe even a 10-hour day. If there's construction or a wreck on 285 or 85 North, now all of a sudden my day becomes a 10 or 11-hour day. And when you start to amortize that across that fee across the entire 10 hours, we'll say, just being easy to make the math happen, that's $15 an hour. There's plenty of other jobs you might enjoy more that pay more than $15 an hour. So the way I look at it is each hour of my time has a certain dollar amount that it's worth. And so I really try and take in account the entirety of the time it's going to take to do something. When I go on the road, the pay that I get is not just for the show that we're doing, it's for the travel time that's involved. So, like with this gig, we're leaving the day before to get here. So not only am I traveling, in this case I'm traveling on a Saturday, which I could have put an in-town gig on. I'm traveling on a Saturday to play on a Sunday to travel back home on a Monday. So it's 3 days of time. I have to take that fee and ask myself, is that an effective use of my time, dollars for hours? One of the best things I ever did, and I did this now almost 25 years ago, was opening my own studio. And now for the last 20 years, the studio is in my house. I'd say 90% of the work I do, I don't even leave home when it comes to studio work. That is the most effective I can be, hours to dollars, because I can charge an hourly rate for my work in the studio, and my commute is 2 flights of stairs. I don't really have a whole lot of time that I have to set up for things or tear down for things, because most everything is sitting there. The most I may have to do is change out a drum kit, which might take 10 minutes, change out a few mics, or if I'm producing something, maybe we're doing guitar setups or keyboard setups. Not a whole lot of time involved in that. We're working pretty quickly, so maybe 30 minutes prior to the session, 30 minutes after the session to get all that stuff cleared out and reset the studio. So the majority of a workday when I never leave home is work that I'm on the clock for. If I'm doing drum tracks for someone, I usually do a flat fee. And so in that case, some tracks may take an hour or two if they're really involved, but a lot of times I might crank out 3 takes on a song, and the entire elapsed time from starting to make my chart to having completed takes maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes at the most. 5 minutes to chart the tune, and then however many times it takes for me to play 2 or 3 takes that I'm happy with that I can choose from. In that case, my flat fee is really sort of strapped across 25 minutes as opposed to a certain amount of hours. And if I've got 4, 5, or 6 tunes to do in a day, if I get them done in a half a day, that's an incredible exponential value to me, because now I'm not necessarily tied to an hourly rate. I'm tied to a project rate of sorts. That being said, my flat fee doesn't change a lot from song to song. So occasionally if I get a really difficult tune or someone who's very specific about a part that they want played and it doesn't fall under my hands easily, I might take 2 hours to get a take I'm happy with. Still, when I amortize that fee across the 2 hours, it's still a lot better sometimes than going out and playing gigs. So instead of thinking about what is the most underutilized, think about what are the most effective ways for me to trade my time for a certain dollar figure. And then if you can do something to compress or certainly not expand too much that time across those dollars, then you can be much more effective with the time that you have. Time is our most finite resource. I only have so many hours in the day. Second to that is my energy. You may not think it, but sitting on a plane or sitting in a bus, or in this case we drove up in a van together, the band did, you would think that sitting for a few hours and maybe just talking to friends wouldn't be all that energy consuming. But by the time we got here to the hotel, after doing everything that we did, it was already 7 o'clock. I'm pretty tired. By the time I get done with dinner, I'm wiped by 11 o'clock. And it feels like, even though I haven't done any work necessarily, that entire travel day is pretty taxing. So not only have I taken an entire day just to get to where the gig is, but I've also used an entire day's worth of energy just to get to where the gig is. So now, what are some of the, I'm going to, again, rephrasing this question, what are some of the most valuable ways? For me, my church gig is a very valuable gig to me because of the amount of drive time. It takes me 2 minutes to get to my church gig. The amount of prep time, I don't spend more than 30 minutes on any given week if we've got new songs to learn. If I have no new songs to learn, there's nothing to do. I already have charts for everything. I'm familiar with the songs. And then for the amount of time that I'm there, which is about 4 hours, it works out pretty close to what my general hourly rate is. So if I have someone else who offers me a church gig that's an hour drive one way for almost the same money, it may not be the most valuable use of my time. If I have to get up 2 hours earlier or 3 hours earlier, if I'm going to get home a couple of hours later, it makes for a longer work day. And for that 20% increase or 30% increase in pay, it might not equal out for me in the amount of time that it takes. So I may take that church gig on a Sunday that pays a little bit less money because it leaves me more time to sleep in the morning or more time to work out of my studio in the afternoon. And I do work out of my studio on Sundays in the afternoon sometimes. So really think about that. Think holistically about how much time does something take. And then look at, for the fee that I'm making, if you're not charging an hourly rate, like I'm not charging hourly for coming and doing this gig, there's a set fee. Does that work out in terms of the hours? The other thing that I do want to put in here that for some of the travel gigs that I do, I also build in the people that I'm working with. There's some value to me in the time that I spend with those people that goes beyond the pay that I get. So like in the case of this gig, I'm hanging out with 3 people I really like a lot. And we have an amazing time just hanging out and having a ton of laughs and having some new stories. That's valuable to me. Getting to eat at places I'll never get to eat unless I come to this place. So the experience of the places we come, this old hotel that I wouldn't be surprised if there's some ghosts walking around even in the daytime in this old hotel. Those kind of experiences, those, especially at my age now, those have a lot of value to me. So if I have the opportunity to have some experiences with people that I really enjoy hanging out with, it doesn't offset, it doesn't pay my mortgage, but it does enrich my life. So there's some gigs that I've said no to because I didn't feel like when I take the money that I'm getting paid plus the experience of what happens from the time I leave my door all the way until I get back to my front door again, maybe the experience leaves me in a deficit. It doesn't add to my life. Well, maybe I don't take some of those gigs. It's a different way of thinking about how to run your business. Most people make all of their choices about their business based on a dollar amount or based on money. Based on income or the cost of doing business. And one thing I'd encourage you to do is think in a 360-degree kind of perspective. Look at all angles. So somebody's knocking on my door, it's probably housekeeping. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see if I can do one more of these before I go. That's all I got for you now. Until next time, be awesome to yourself. Be extra awesome to everybody you meet. Until next time, I'll see you when I see you. Thanks so much.